Hey everybody, I'm John Granato. I'm on mornings on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. That's Josh Jordan. He's the editor of SportsMap HOU, and he's also a co-host of Moneyline on the weekends right here on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. And if you want to get all of our content here at SportsMap HOU, please hit subscribe right now so you get it all. Hey, Josh, Cody Stutz, who's part of our new lineup on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5, recently reported his observations from Texans training camp on SportsMapHouston.com. In his article, he said the Texans are getting so little production from any QBs outside of Taylor, he thinks they should consider swapping out Jeff Driscoll for another quarterback. Do you think that after drafting Davis Mills in the third round, that you got to get a guy that actually can play because Davis Mills can't get on the field this year?
It's certainly possible. If Tyrod Taylor gets hurt or something like that, you don't really have anybody you can really trust back there. And I know we all heard about Davis Mills struggling, last week where he threw a lot of interceptions. Well, even yesterday we were hearing reports that he was throwing against air and he was just missing guys wild. So that's a concern. I think they're going to keep him on the roster, obviously, because they spent that draft capital on him. And we shouldn't be too worried. I mean, he only started 11 games at Stanford. I wouldn't think that he'd come out here and just, light it up. But what I think is interesting, and I think we did a SportsMap video about it, where Ian Rappaport said that the Texans saw more value in taking Davis Mills because they added so many free agents that maybe some of the defensive players that were still on the board when they selected Mills may not have even made the roster. We talked about that, and I think Lance shot that down and named a lot of good players that would have been there. But either way, they went with Mills. And I guess he's going to make the roster, but he doesn't seem like a player that they could count on if they needed him in a pinch. And Driscoll's just been, by all accounts, terrible. They may need to go get somebody.
Well, I mean, we know for a fact there are guys that were drafted after Davis Mills that are going to be players in the league. I mean, there were defensive players that maybe would have had to sit the first year or maybe would have gotten limited playing time, but they could have been players going forward. That you don't want a young player at a position, at a defensive position, or even an offensive position. So they shouldn't have drafted Nico Collins. They should have drafted just quarterbacks all along. I mean, that's so idiotic that you couldn't have found a player that would have been better suited than a guy who isn't apparently very good. Now, we can't judge. We just saw this week Robert Saleh saying, hey, Zach Wilson, let's not put our expectations too high, even on the number 2 overall pick, because he's just a rookie. I'm not worried that, about how Davis Mills is playing here early on. I'm just worried that he gets on the field. If you want to go out and get another quarterback right now, then you're saying, we got to have a guy that can actually play in case something happens to Tyrod Taylor. In case something happens to Tyrod Taylor, you got to play Davis Mills. So you got to find out what you got here.
No, I agree with you. I think you do, but that worries me that, he's that bad in practice. Imagine what's going to happen in a game. But on the other side, you might be looking to lose as many games as possible if you want to speed up this rebuild. So you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You get a look at Davis Mills, and maybe you lose some games and you get a higher draft pick.
Charles Robinson is reporting that the Texans haven't given up on Watson being their QB. The asking price for Watson has been so high, some teams are speculating the Texans don't want to trade him. Is there a scenario where the Texans come to an agreement where Deshaun plays at least another year with the team, then they'll trade him next year once his trade value returns?
I don't think it would happen, but, we saw Caserio talking to Deshaun at camp yesterday, and everybody started talking about it, and David Culley. But we have to remember, Deshaun's big problem is with Cal McNair. He wasn't happy that they hired Caserio because he thought he'd be involved in the process, but I don't think he blames Caserio for that. That was Cal McNair and Jack Easterby's decision. But the one thing I think is we get closer to actual games, Deshaun's going to get those old feelings coming back. He's a competitor. He's going to want to play. And the other thing that came to my mind, remember at the end of last year when they were playing for nothing, and a lot of the fans were like, hey, don't play Deshaun. Don't risk him getting hurt. He was taking a lot of sacks, getting hit. They're like, these games are meaningless. Don't play him. And Deshaun refused. He's like, I am playing football. That is in him. So I have to wonder as we get closer to real games here, if Deshaun will, maybe maybe want to get out on the field. But will the Texans let him? That's another question.
Well, and I think what Bucky Brooks, who said, hey, Texans, you got to play him, and Charles Robinson, hey, the Texans want to play him. What's lost here is that he's going to be on the exempt list. He's not playing either way. The league's not going to let him play. So you can't waste your time giving him reps or hoping that he'll play, even if he would want to play, which he doesn't want to play for the Texans. And I wholeheartedly believe that the Texans don't want him either. They're just asking a lot for him because they have to get a lot for him. He's their only asset. It only makes sense. You can't take pennies on the dollar with Deshaun Watson because you don't have anything else. It's not that hard, everybody out there. They have to ask for a lot, even if they can't trade him until before next draft. Don't trade him. Don't take pennies on the dollar. He's your only asset since Bill O'Brien screwed up the whole team.
No, I agree. You want to set that high asking price because you don't want it out there that you were asking less for him now. Because if you do hold on to him and you go to trade him, before the draft next year, then maybe other teams say, hey, you were only asking this much, last year, and now you're asking more. So you want to keep that consistent, that you're asking for a big package for Deshaun.